Sure. I'm Jamie Sweet. My kennel is Blue River Bullies, Blue River Bulldogs, Blue River Shorty Bulls. I answer to all that. The River answer to that too. But I've done Bulldogs my whole life, and so it's quite a few years now. And so I'm doing Shorty Bulls now. That's been my latest adventure. So that's where I'm at
Mhm.
now.
What got you interested in bulldogs to begin with, and what was your first introduction to them?
Well, my first, I mean, I was just born into I was born into the bulldogs. Actually, my parents raised bulldogs, and we lived on a farm, and so I've never known life without a bulldog. And English bulldogs is what they did. That was in the '60s. English bulldogs, and so like as early as I can remember, I was in a whelping box with an English bulldog. Hooking up the puppies, making sure everything was okay, and sitting with them, and so it just came natural to me. And I always loved bulldogs. I loved so many things about them. I loved the way they looked, and I loved the way they acted. I never did like the way they couldn't keep up. And we led a very active lifestyle, and we did a lot of hunting and hiking and things like that growing up. So I always liked the ones that could keep up, and that was my whole attraction to the Bulldogs, was the look first, and then what they did, what they looked like. And so I got really, really involved in that. And my dad had other breeds of dogs too. We had hunting dogs, and he had some pit bulls and some Airedales. And so, a lot of dogs in my life and a lot of horses in my life too. Like I say, we lived on a farm, raised cattle, and, horses were a big part of our life. We showed horses, raised horses. And there's so many similarities with horses and dogs. And so it was natural for me to just carry on the lifestyle that I lived all my life. And so I married my husband. He had a Great Dane when we got married, and he converted to bulldogs, I guess you'd say, too, because that's all we've done since. But when I saw some American bulldogs, in the '90s, I guess. It was in the early '90s, and I wanted one, and they were not, in my area. And so it was something that I just thought about. I'd raised a lot of rat terriers at that point, too. And that was just, if you're on a farm, you have little terriers for the mice and rodent control and that. So, that was just a given, too. We did that. But I subscribed to Dog World, and we didn't have the internet or anything like that. If you wanted to know about a dog, maybe saw an ad in Dog World, and you called. And if you wanted a puppy, you were writing letters back and forth and mailing them. And the photos, if you wanted photos, we had to wait until they were developed. And then if you didn't get good shots, of course, you had to send them anyway. So things were a lot different then. But I would see them in Dog World, and I just wanted one so bad. And so we saved our money, and we finally got our first American bulldog, and we really liked.
Consider joining our Patreon community to access exclusive content, early releases, and personalized experiences. Subscribing not only supports Sean from the Bulldog Social Club, but also connects you with a community of like-minded enthusiasts. Whether you enjoy Sean's interviews, appreciate creative processes, or desire exclusive perks, your subscription plays a crucial role. Click the link, subscribe, and be a part of this journey with us.
It. And so, that led to some more. And I had kids by that point too. And, it's a lot to raise kids and do dogs. And I worked a full-time job. My husband worked. And so we were a really busy family. And I was really efficient then. And now I don't have, the busyness. And I think I was more efficient then with all the stuff that goes into an active kennel. But breeding dogs and raising dogs and showing dogs and talking dogs and meeting dog people. I loved every aspect of that. And it was really something that I enjoyed. And so, I'll always enjoy the dogs. and I'll always enjoy breeding because, I mean, it was just such a natural thing. You know, when you live on a farm, you see birth and you see death, and, it becomes a natural thing. And I think um, that's what really helped was, I was accustomed to that. It wasn't some novel idea. It was how I grew up. Every day I did that, from as early as I can remember. And so when people ask me, if I had advice for people today, what it would be, if you're going to breed dogs, I'd say, have space, because it's really hard when you don't have space. Have space and have a lot of money to spend on it. And yeah, you should be fine. That should get you through the learning process. And we never stop learning, but you learn as you go, and there's definitely an order to learning it, so you can apply it to your program or your project, whatever you want to call it, to get the results that you want. So anyway, we did American Bulldogs. We did those extensively, and we weight pulled, and we showed conformation.
Do you enjoy listening to audio podcasts like I do? Consider joining the Bulldog Social Club Spotify membership. For a limited time, it's only $1.99. Get early releases and personalized experiences. Subscribing not only supports Sean from the Bulldog Social Club, but also connects you with a community of like-minded enthusiasts. Whether you enjoy Sean's interviews, appreciate creative processes, or desire exclusive perks, your subscription plays a crucial role. Click the link, subscribe, and be a part of this journey with us.
And we had many of them, and that's a lot of dog. And our kids were small then, and so it was a lot of dog to contend with. You needed fences and proper fences and things like that. And so when we started, I didn't have a kennel. That was another dream of mine. And so a few years went by with a small number of dogs, and then we were able to build the kennel, which was a dream come true for me. And so we built this kennel that could house American Bulldogs. So it has concrete block walls that are 7 foot high on the inside, and 16-foot custom made welded runs on the outside, and a 4x6 on the inside, and a 12-foot alleyway. And it was just a dream come true. And it was, we made it very sturdy to hold the American Bulldogs and to make sure it was safe. If we weren't out there, it was safe. They couldn't get out and nothing could get in. And, we did that for a long time. I can't remember how many years we did that, but a lot of years, and I don't keep track. Like, I don't have track of the dates exactly, because it's a way of life for me,
Mhm.
And just like when I made Shorty Bulls, a lot of people ask me, like, when did it start? I can't tell you the exact date, because I didn't sit down one day and say, okay, today's the day I'm going to build this little dog. I started, the reason and how I started Shorty Bulls was I could tell I was getting older. And when I say the American Bulldogs are a lot of dog, I mean, we had a lot of 118, 120 pound dogs. And like I say, we had an active lifestyle. When you get bumped into by an American Bulldog, they can only hit your knees so many times, because it's a lot of force to your knee. And so, we were roughhousing, and I got rammed in the leg one more time. And I said, I'm going to build something. I'm going to build something that I can take to the nursing home when I get old. That's what I said, and because I didn't want a little frail, fragile, yappy dog with long hair. That wasn't what I wanted. I wanted the same things that I liked about a bulldog. I wanted the bulldog features, and the stout build, and the bone, and the attitude. I wanted all that stuff, but I wanted it about this big, so I could handle it real easy. And that's what got me started, and the other thing that made me want to do that is, whenever you do a breeding, there's a challenge involved. You have this idea of what you want,
Mhm.
but can you get it? And that's always been just intriguing to me. I mean, intriguing to the point of, you know, I want to learn about it always. Still to this day, I'm still learning things, and I love it. I want to read about it. I want to look at it. I want to touch it. I want to spend a day with it, you know? And when you're intrigued like that, you just can't stop. You know, there's just constant information that you know, you're interested in, and you're very self-motivated to just keep doing it and trying it. And fortunately, I had the space to do it, and I had, you know, I had a good support system, because it's hard to do very many dogs without a support system. You're tied to them so hard every day, and you know, it's hard to get out and do things. It's like having babies at home, you know. So you have to find somebody to care for that, and it's, you know, it's hard to do, but it's really I'm still intrigued to this day after all these years. I'm still deeply intrigued by dogs. I keep thinking it's going to go away. It doesn't ever go away,
Right.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what got me to Shorty Bulls. You know, that's not, you know, we can talk about the technicalities, but yeah, I got hit in the leg one too many times. And, you know, I'd already done the oldies. You know, I'd been in the Americans for a while. And, you know, I said I always had a love of an English Bulldog. Well, I was driving to the airport one day, and I happened to see an oldie. I didn't know that's what it was. It was just one of those dogs that makes you put the brakes on, you know, makes you turn your head. It was one of those dogs. And so I had to go around the block and, you know, go. And back then, you know, it was safe to go ask somebody about their dog, you know, that you just saw and you're a complete
Mm-hmm.
stranger. And so that's what I did. And we had a nice talk, and the dog was just so beautiful. And so I checked out oldies, and you know, they appealed to me a lot. You know, they looked more like the English Bulldog, and I loved that about them. And they could keep up, you know, and they're healthier. You know, it was just a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, as I dug deeper into that, I found I found the WBA and Ray Giacobbe, and I called, and we talked and talked and talked and talked some more. And anyway, I was allowed to do some foundation work, and that was a great, you know, that was a beautiful thing that I was allowed to do that, you know. And because I wanted to do it, you know, I didn't want to have to, you know, put some fake papers on something or whatever. I didn't want to do any of that. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, and document it, and you know, we'll see how it went. And so Ray allowed me to do that, and it worked really well. And I feel like it worked very well because, you know, I was so familiar with the American Bulldogs. I was very familiar with the English Bulldogs, and I knew there was a certain kind that I wanted to put together, you know. And so I bred a lot of oldies, and I feel I was very successful there. I made a lot of beautiful, beautiful, healthy, functional dogs, you know, that had type, and you know, they had the muscular structure that I liked, and they had the skeletal structure that I liked. And they were just very pretty dogs. And but again, they were very big. Those were weighing about 105 pounds, you know, from 80 to 105 pounds on average. And so I was able to do a lot of foundation work there. And as you know, foundation works when you know, you bring in a purebred dog to what you have, and it's very, that's a common thing to do when you need to, you know, add type or maybe correct something, or if something's, you know, if you're losing something, maybe you need to do that to bring it back. They do it in a lot of breeds, but it needs to be, you know, it's a very serious thing as well. And you know, I had learned so much from my previous experience with dogs. I feel like that had a huge bearing on my oldies, you know. And I still made some mistakes there and had some great success there that, you know, that carried over, that I used when I did
Mm-hmm.
shorties. And so that's you know, you can learn from all kinds of experiences, good and bad. And you know, as well as we plan, and as good as our intentions are, some things just don't turn out, no matter how well they're planned, no matter what tests you have done, no matter how good your eye is, some things just don't turn out. So, as a breeder, you have to be prepared for those times. You have to be honest with yourself. It is something that happens, and it can just come out of nowhere, really. And so anyway, that's just my experience led me to this vision of Shorty Bulls. So I was just doing it for me, and at that time I didn't know where it was going to go at all. I hadn't even done it yet. I was just starting, and so I wanted to have several grown adults before it went to the public eye. I just wanted to make sure that it was, solidified like I wanted it, and I had something to show, because, we can all have a vision, but a vision is just that until you make it, you're dreaming about it. And yeah, and so I wanted to have these 10 adults or 20 adults, would even be better before it went, mainstream, but that's not how it happened. I had an oldie show in 2000, and I was working on it then, and yeah, my judges came a little bit early because they knew I was working on something. That was in the good old days when we could, tease each other and stuff, and it was a great time to breed dogs then. But anyway, they caught me. I was taking the Shorties. I was taking my little project, and I was going to put it away, and so we could focus on the dog show. And nah, they saw it, and it was pretty exciting. And so then it went, it got put out there, and yeah, and it had a great little surge of popularity. And oh, those were crazy times. You think about it and you think what you're going to face doing something like that, but there's a lot of stuff that just sideswipes you. But when you do build a new breed and it's actually becoming a breed, all new breeds come from old breeds. Every single one of them. The new breeds come from breeds that we've already had here. But when people have the old breeds, sometimes they're not very excited for you to make a new breed. So out of respect, I gave it a different name, and I'm big on that. I think, if you're going to take this on, take it on all the way. So, you're going to keep your own records, because who's going to take this, little idea of yours? Because the first, it's just an idea, you have to make sure it works and all that. So anyway, yeah, it caused havoc with some people, some English Bulldog breeders, some French Bulldog breeders. Yeah, they didn't like my idea very well, and felt like they should call and tell me about it, which we had those talks, and I don't think they realized, I did give it a different name, and so it's not taking your shine. It's not, it's a different thing, the way that all dogs and dog breeds come to be. And so, that was in the beginning, that was a lot of phone calls and a lot of, a lot of volatile people, but we lived through all that and continued. And, foundation breedings had to be planned and approved and, evaluated. And it was kind of crazy, 20 some years ago. And it was, I wanted it to take off then, but it's hard to believe that when you're in the middle of it. It's hard to believe all that, but yeah, it was really popular, and it was, timing was everything too. Timing's everything in dogs too. Something at the right time can just flourish so much, and at the wrong time, it can just get crushed. And maybe the idea was a good one, just at the wrong time. So, we know how important timing is for breeding and for whelping. And, you don't want to bring a dog out to the show at the wrong time. You want to wait until it looks, really good for its age, and it's a good time to bring it out. But timing is so important. And so, that was to my advantage. The timing was great. And, yeah, and it just went from there to today. And so today I feel like I've got my program, you know, where I want it. I knew it was going to take many years to, establish a solid type. People ask me all the time, like, how many generations tell us a breed? Well, I don't go by that. I'm not as concerned with the generations as I am with what it actually is right now, right in front of me. Because if it's 50 generations deep and I'm not sure what it is, then all those generations don't matter because I don't know what it is.
Right.
Does that make
Definitely.
sense? Yeah. So, that's kind of the age old thing we talk about in dogs, generational or foundational. And well, foundational, foundational needs to be, it's not for entry level. There's a lot of things you need to understand before you should do foundation work, I believe. Although it's exciting, there's a whole lot more to it than that, and but we need it. As soon as you lose, if you're losing type, you have to keep the type in there. And then somebody will say, well, it's not more important than health. No, it's not. But I mean, I'm taking health into consideration. Like, I'm taking for granted it's a healthy dog. I mean, I don't understand why anybody would mess with an unhealthy dog to try to make it reproduce. Okay, so I want to make that clear because I'm often misunderstood on that. But yes, health is important. Soundness is very important, and type is important too. If we want to have breeds, type is very important. So, I'm real big on type. I think there's a lot of people today that don't realize what type is, but if you are going to breed a litter or show a dog, you should know about your type. You should know the 5 components and know how important it is, because to be a breed of dog, you have to have your own unique type, and there may be similarities because your ancestors are other breeds. So you will see similarities, but you should see differences. And if everything, is available in every size, shape, and color, and there's no restrictions, that doesn't make you very unique for very long. And don't we all want to be unique to some degree? I believe we do. So when people say, it's not equal, it's definitely not equal. It was never supposed to be equal. If people would think about that, we don't all want the same dog. We don't. We want, our special dogs. And so I think those things come to you after, you've been knee deep in this for a while. But so when I was building my breed, type was super important. I knew the features that I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. And it doesn't matter what kind of a breed I have. I like bully dogs. I will like a bully greyhound if there's such a thing. That's the one I'm liking. I'm liking the bulliest rat terrier. I'm going to pick the rat terrier with the bone and blah, blah, blah. That's what I like personally. Another reason why type is important is judging. If we're judging, then I can't pick my personal preference. I must pick what is in the standard and what is described by the standard. And I think that takes a while to get to that point too. And I know I'm jumping around, but I'm trying to tie this all together. So, if you're old in this, you understand what I'm saying. If you're new, maybe this is making some sort of sense that it didn't make before. But, the standards are very important to our breeds. If we want to have breeds, we need to have breeds. I mean, that's what keeps us breeds, is believing we're breeds and breeding to keep breeds, And that means sometimes we have to say no to certain things, just to keep our type unique. So sometimes when when you think you have a vision and stuff, I mean, it's a lot of work to make that a reality, and it takes a number of dogs. But people say, how many generations? I don't think there's a formula for that. I think it's a breed when somebody who's not, doesn't know much about it can breed it and get dogs, and we can tell they're still of that breed.
Mhm.
That's when it's solid, you know. Um, it doesn't matter how many generations. It doesn't matter where the foundation is. It matters what it is when you evaluate that dog. And eventually, you want to have dogs that are typey, and then combine those and lock that in, and continue to do that until, it's like an old breed, like the Beagles, like the
Mhm.
Boxers, something like that. Um, and we can't say yes to everything, you know. So I have a question for you. I use this as an example all the time. So everyone knows what a Rottweiler is and what a
Mhm.
Doberman is. They're both black. They have the tan markings. You know, there's a lot of similarities. There's a whole lot of differences. So if we're talking about breeds, it's not the same to call a slim version of a Rottweiler. That doesn't make it a Doberman any more than, if you have a shorter, heavy boned, short muzzled Doberman, it doesn't make it a
Mhm.
Rottweiler, you know? And so I think sometimes we get it mixed up with, the quality according to the standard and what it really
Mhm.
is. Does that make
Yeah, for
sense?
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So a critical eye is important.
So let's go back to the American Bulldogs.
Hmm.
What was it like as a woman in that breed? It seems like it was a very male dominated
It was
community.
at that
Yeah.
time. It was, and it was, I thought it was just great fun, you know. Um, I grew up with lots of I grew up with lots of men, and I grew up in a family that's always betting and challenging, and I bet my dog's faster than yours. I bet my dog can hang longer, all that stuff. And so that was second nature to me, and I thought everybody's dogs acted like mine. I didn't realize that, you know, the big differences that were out there. But I was accustomed to that sort of lifestyle, so you know, it was great, and I wasn't afraid to get, down and dirty with the dogs. I mean, I had dog clothes and I had good clothes, and that was just a given. Like, you
Mhm.
know, we're gonna wrestle these big American bulldogs. That's how it's gonna be, and so, you know, it was easy for me because of growing up on the farm and everything too. It's kind
Right.
of a different lifestyle on the farm, you know, and I already had all that experience
Mhm.
with me, and those are big, strong dogs, big, strong
Mhm.
dogs. Yeah. So, I still feel today that the American Bulldog is a breed that should be respected, greatly, for it's a lot of dog.
Mhm.
If you're not familiar with dogs, that's a hard one to start on because they are so strong and powerful.
What were some of the original lines that you had?
Well, I liked BTK Blood. I liked that a lot because it was bullier. I liked the bully style. I had some Johnson dogs. I didn't have any Scott dogs. That was a little too clean for
Mhm.
me, you know. And so I stuck with the bullier things. And I never did have 100% Johnson either, So I like the shorter, stockier dogs, and I was in it before Mufasa came. If you know Mufasa, he was that was truly a game changer when he entered the American Bulldog scene. He was something. He was just a beautiful dog. I remember the first time I saw Mufasa. We'd driven 8 hours to get to a show, and we were close to finishing a championship on one of our dogs, and I thought that show was the show we'd do it at. And we pulled in. I turned over here, and there's Mufasa as a young 2-year old,
Mhm.
and he was a jaw dropper. He really
Mhm.
was. I hadn't seen him before, and I knew right then that I knew somehow right then when I saw that dog that our stuff was going to be out of style. I knew it,
Mhm.
and he was amazing. He was really beautiful, but we saw a lot of changes when Mufasa came on, and yeah, it was an exciting time in American Bulldogs because he was a game changer,
Mhm. Mhm.
and very popular, and yeah. And I mean, I knew the minute I saw that dog, I knew he was
Mhm.
something. Yeah, that's a lot. You don't get that opportunity a lot of times. I don't know how it struck me that I knew it. I mean, he was really just amazing for the time. But when you think to back to American Bulldogs and how they developed, when we first started, hardly any of them had a suit of color of anything. They were white
Mhm.
dogs, you know, and then Templars had some brindle solid dogs, and Jack Robinson had some, he had some patched up dogs, and so that was kind of an exciting time too because things were changing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not a whole lot different than the color today.
Right.
Color, yeah. I mean, it's exciting, and it is. The thing is, if you can get it all together and it still looks like the breed, then that's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, I definitely like a
Because
little color in American Bulldogs.
yeah, the American Bulldogs are just so strong and powerful, and we weight pulled a lot, and um, they're just a dog that, like I say, they're a lot of dog. They require some exercise and some time and some strong fences and training, and they're not for the meek.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I love that about them
Right.
too. We worked them. We did bite work, and the hang time's a blast. And I was a lot younger
Right.
then, and it's a young person's
Yeah.
dog. Unless you're strong.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was fun. I met a lot of people in American Bulldogs that taught me so much because, like I said earlier, we went from writing letters to buy dogs. I was there when DVDs started to come out.
Mhm.
And you'd get a tape of the dogs you were interested in. Every kennel had this DVD that they made, and those were big changes. When American Bulldog Resources began, there was like seven sites on it. Yeah, I was there for that, and the message boards. Um, yeah, and to see it turn into what it is today is quite amazing.
Do you think breeding oldies kind of helped you with some of the negativity as far as like, did you get some of the blowback that you've gotten with shorties with oldies when you were mixing English and American?
Not as much because they'd already, it was not brand new
Mhm.
then. They were already out
Right.
there. So, I didn't really get that. I attribute some of that to I was just really fortunate with the dogs that I
Mhm.
bred that they came out, typey and along the lines of what, we were shooting
Mhm.
for. And I think that was huge for not getting a bunch of negativity. And that was a great time in dogs those years. It was a really nice time in dogs. We didn't have social media, and I mean social media has helped us, but it's also hurt us in a lot of ways, I feel. But that was a good time in dogs. There was a lot happening, um, and a lot around you happening,
Mhm.
and a dog that, it commanded attention, and a look when you walked it, it was still, big enough. Um, it drew a lot of attention,
Mhm.
especially when they looked like bodybuilders. And, there was an obvious distinction from English bulldogs and from
Mhm.
American bulldogs at that time. There was a distinction when it was an oldie,
Mhm.
and there wasn't a lot of shows and stuff for oldies. There were some, but the whole dynamic I think at that time was different. It was a different group of people, and the group of people behind the breed is what runs a breed
Mhm.
basically. you know they keep things happening, or they let things fade away that maybe shouldn't. But I think with oldies, they are such fat, cute, wrinkly, adorable puppies. And then They're supposed to be healthier and, not as expensive then as the English Bulldog. I mean, it was like a win-win,
Right. Right.
you know. But there were a lot of breeders, and there were a lot of, there were a lot of good dogs, and but again, it was a good time in dogs then.
Mhm.
It was a lot different than it is now, and the dog population, every year it continues to grow, and that we just have more and more and more and more and more. And so we're seeing a lot of saturation with different breeds, and you know, we're just seeing a lot of things that we didn't see back then because they weren't as popular
Mhm.
back then.
Right. How do you think your time with Americans working them and competing and working type sports, how has that helped with your breeding? Has it, or is it just
Oh, that's helped
yeah?
tremendously. Whenever you do those things and you're committed to them, we had good mentors, um, and we had a lot of good people teaching us what to do, what not to do. I mean, so when you're in weight pulling, it's a very strong commitment. You have to commit to that because you will do something every day if you take this seriously. Every day you're going to do work with the dog in the harness, and first you have to get them used to that. You have to get them used to noise behind it. I mean, all those things has greatly helped me because it applies to all breeds. It applies, even though there's differences in how you might train a different breed, all those things apply. Like, you can't rush the training phases. So one of the first things you want to do in weight pulling, a rookie wants to do is take that leash off and have them pull. But if you take the leash off too soon, you go backwards a few steps. And so everybody has to screw up here and there. I was always taking the leash off too soon, you know, getting all excited, take the leash off too soon, then we're going backwards. But all those things that I learned, you learned conditioning, you learn how to feed, you learn how the harness, we made our own harnesses because, you couldn't get harnesses a lot of times. So we made our own. I ruined a lot of sewing machines figuring that out. But, where the harness hits the dog is going to affect how they pull. Just things like that,
Mhm.
the weather conditions. Back then, we didn't do rails so much, we did dirt. And pulling on dirt is a whole different thing. We had to jump over lines and, move the carts, and it'd be so much weight on them. And, a dog will dig a hole and have to pull out of the hole. So that taught me, just tons of stuff, little things you learn, but you can apply to all the rest of the
Mhm.
breeds. Yeah. And you also learn that every little thing, like the weight pulling to showing of different breeds, they all have a different crowd behind the breed. Okay. And so learning all the different people, and you can learn from all of that. Even if you don't like the breed, even if it's not your thing, you can still learn from that. And so, you know, breeds are really a reflection of the people behind them. And some of those can be real interesting. And they're learning from you as well. So, there's just so much that you can learn, even if you don't like the
Mhm.
dogs. If everybody remembers that, good for them. It'll get you, you know, there
Mhm.
faster. Yeah, but we can learn from all kinds of breeds. And we can learn so much about type, you know, why do they want to be built this way? Maybe they have a purpose. That's one thing we're losing a little bit, well, a lot today is our dogs. What is their purpose really besides bringing us some joy? Um, we don't. They don't cart the groceries from the market. They don't, hurt our livestock. The bulldogs aren't catching bulls anymore. All those things we don't really. Dogs kind of lost their jobs, and so when they have to make us happy, my happiness and your happiness could be very different. But anyway, it boils down to it's an opinion.
Mhm.
And if they have to haul a load in this wagon across this line, that's not an opinion. They either do it or they don't. And so it's a pass fail thing. And that's where a lot of the struggles come in today is, things are based on opinion, and you just leave a lot of things wide open with an opinion. Your experience affects that. Um, the way you think affects that. It's an opinion, and so things aren't as clear cut as a pass
Right.
fail. But if you're working a dog, if you're doing protection, if you're weight pulling, if you're hunting, the dogs either do it or they do not. you know? And when we talk about virtues, it's easier to talk about virtues when they have definite purpose and pass fails. Because if you don't really understand virtues, I think this is a great way to understand it. If there's a coonhound that hunts really well, but he's cowhocked and his ear set's wrong, he still is a wonderful hunter. He still probably outhunts the dogs that are built correctly. So therefore, he trumps that. So is that a dog with a virtue? Of course it is. His hunting ability is a great virtue. That's what he was bred to do. So, you know, when we talk about breeding around faults or whatever, that'd be a great dog you'd want to try that on because he does have an incredible virtue, his hunting ability. So let's try to keep the hunting ability. Let's try to straighten out the cowhawks. And that would make perfect sense. You could probably get it done easily and retain the hunting ability. But when they don't have strong virtues, it's a little harder to see through it all. It gets gray real fast.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to justify to the community. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is what has health testing done to the dog world, to the dog breeding world, the good and the bad?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm probably not the one to ask about health testing because I look at it a little differently. I think the ultimate health test is a dog that's 10 years old and still active and with minimal vet visits. And I can attest to that on many, 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 many dogs. I think a lot of health testing is marketing because health testing does not guarantee you a healthy puppy. Might help you, but it does not guarantee it. A lot of the things, are what is going to change if you find out that it has this problem. Okay, you might not make a breeding, but I think it's misunderstood a lot of times. I think it's done for the wrong reasons a lot of times. Again, I said I've had many dogs that I've kept their entire life from the minute they hit the floor of the whelping box till they, passed away at a good old age. That to me is better than any health test there is. I often wonder with these dogs that are the ultimate, they pass the health test great and all that. Are they ever kept their whole life? Are they just farmed out when they're done with puppies? I don't know. I'm not saying don't do health testing, but I'm saying, healthy dogs are healthy dogs. I wouldn't breed unhealthy dogs. I guess there's a lot of people that do, but a health test isn't going to make that stop either. They're still going to do that. So, if you're health testing and it is really for health, more power to you. I hope you get healthy dogs. If you're health testing to sell your dogs, you might want to look into type a little bit. It would probably help. And that's about what I feel. But, 10 years ago, we didn't hear of all the problems we have today. Of course, there was not as many dogs as there is today. But some of the things today that, I read online or I hear about or my friends call me with, and they live in the city and, their vets has them scared to death over things. A lot of it is unnecessary. It really, truly is. If you're a breeder, you should be able to vaccinate your own dogs. If you can't vaccinate a dog, you have to be able to do some of those things yourself, and you have to get over. Dogs were made to heal themselves. Dogs were made to be healthy. Dogs were made to be our companion. Dogs were made to, be by our side and basically eat garbage and watch the camp at night, right? That's how they became domesticated. We can't lose all of that. We cannot lose all of that. If you want to shove antibiotics down your dog's throat every time it sniffles, you're just helping you're helping that be lost. But I know that I'm losing that battle because people want to go to the vets, and we do need vets. We do need vets definitely, and we need them. When we need them, we don't. But when we get carried away with that, then we're gonna lose some of the things that we're gonna lose some of the health that they do have.
Yeah, it's an interesting question in my mind. I have a livestock guardian dog that was born in a ditch outside,
Oh, really?
raised outside until I picked him up and brought him home, free fed, everything. And when I brought him to, my wife worked at a vet at the time. When I brought him to the vet, they were just sure that he was going to have all these health issues, but he was healthy and horse. And the dogs that were bred in climate controlled environments and had all the care in the world and all the money put into them had a lot more health problems. So it's an interesting concept that
It's very interesting.
yeah, it's hard for me as somebody who hasn't bred or, that is still learning about the process and everything. It's hard for me to even wrap my mind around, like, so what I've come to understand, sometimes people just throw the baby out with the bathwater, and instead of really looking at the overall picture. And like you said, a dog that does its job, it's probably still worth breeding, even if it has a couple of flaws, if you just breed it to a female that. But like I said, I'm learning, and I try not to have too
Right.
many opinions. I'll leave that for the experts. But it's just interesting to know that you can get a healthy dog that was born in a ditch on a farm.
Right. Right. Yeah, and a healthy dog is a wonderful thing. Um, I think in today's world, you have to let a dog be a dog. Sometimes people hover so much and do everything, and you know, dogs still want to be dogs. They really do. And we make everything so dependent. It's almost a disservice sometimes to the dog. A lot of people don't want to put their dog in a crate ever, and they believe crates are bad. And but dogs on their own love a den to go in. It's a safe, secure environment for them. But if something would happen and the dog would have to be in a kennel somewhere, it's terrible if they've never been in a kennel. It's a very scary experience for them. And it causes a lot of anxiety for them. So, nobody is saying keep your dog in a kennel 24 hours a day. To keep your dog safe, it needs to be introduced to a kennel, you know, and spend some short periods of time in a kennel to, get it accustomed to the kennel. But I think it's a bigger disservice to not ever introduce a kennel, to a dog. And that's just one little thing. But just things like that. And all of us have different opinions, but all breeders aren't bad. All vets aren't good. You just that's just life. That's how it is. So you have to sort through and find out for yourself just how that works. But yeah, there's all bulldogs are not unhealthy, They're not. They're not all slugs. They're not, untrainable.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing what's going on now. I mean, it's so important to get the word out, and me researching and following a lot of groups of different breeds and different philosophies and stuff. I've come across a lot of people who dislike brickless phallic breeds, and there's
I know.
a lot of, like, to me, a lot of misinformation. And these people are coming from your border collies and your cattle dogs
Right.
or your greyhounds that, okay, yeah, you want a functional dog that does that kind of work. I want a dog
Mhm.
that's tough, resilient,
Mhm.
has no fear, but is going to be on
Mhm.
my lap 14 hours
Right.
a day, doesn't need a ton of
Mhm.
exercise and doesn't need a lot of stimulation on that end.
And you like the look of
Yes.
it. There's nothing wrong with liking the look of something. That's our world
Yeah,
today,
for sure.
you
I
know?
mean,
That's our world today, you know? So I'm with you on that. I don't, if I have to get a border collie, I'm probably opting out of dogs because it's just too, it's not the look I like and it's not the activity level that
yeah.
I like. And I don't like things that come from behind. And, I just know what I like and that's not for me. But if they want to have that, that's great. That's fine. But, to blanket us all is very unfair. And I can't believe in this year, in 2023, as much as everyone, you know, is aware of all the stereotypes and all that, we still are stereotyping, breeders more than ever.
Mhm.
It's wild. It just, you
What's your
know,
opinion on what's going on in Europe with some of the short-faced dogs that like
well,
pugs and bulldogs?
hmm I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's right. Um, if people realized what bulldogs, how many breeds infuse the bulldog at some point, they bring so many things to the table. Excuse me. And I really do believe that people that dislike bulldogs just, okay, maybe they don't like the look, but then they don't research as far as they should. Some people have never seen a bulldog that can run or breathe or any of that. And I know that for a fact because I have changed the minds of a lot of people with some of my very own dogs, the bulldogs that I've had and used. And it's pretty mind blowing to some people. But it's a thing where, I think everybody's an individual, you know. The having one cesarean and spaying the dogs. I mean, cesareans are, yeah, it's individual. Every breed has had a cesarean. Yes, bulldogs are more likely to have it, but those things that they show you, like the breed in 100 years ago and the breed today, whatever, and how much it's changed. I could go find examples today and do the same thing and make it look like it changed so much. I can find examples of both ends today. So I think a lot of the information it just goes right along with the point the person's trying to make and it's in support of that. But, if a person wanted to get out more, and I'm not talking just to dog shows, go to the dog parks, go, you know, go to some websites, see if you can make a visit. Nobody visits anymore at a kennel visit or whatever. I mean, kennels are almost becoming extinct. Big programs. It's too much for people. People have downsized. It's too much work. It is a lot of work. But when we don't have programs anymore, I don't think we'll have breeds anymore. Not clearly defined.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be a sad day.
Yeah, they're definitely changing breeds there in Europe. I mean, you can't even breed a pug,
Mhm.
and they're
Yeah.
infusing terriers and stuff, which I think is cool. I love that little concept, but it's no longer a pug.
I think it's terrible,
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why. I've had dogs that look like anteaters that can't breathe,
right,
for
right.
real. It's not always the length of the
No,
muzzle. It's not every smash face bulldog. It's not every long nosed pit. No, I've had both, and yeah, I can tell you that's not the answer. I mean, if certain people wish to do that, they can do that, and I think everybody should have their little. We shouldn't be forced to do those things because someone else thinks it's a great idea.
well, my
You know?
opinion is too is like if you're gonna outlaw or heavily restrict breeding brakeless cephalic dogs, why aren't you looking at Dobermans and why aren't you looking at golden retrievers that have some very serious issues in their bloodlines that are causing their dogs to
Mhm.
die at 5 and 6 years old while I have a
Right,
10-year-old
right.
bulldog laying next to me, right? So,
That's what I say. I'm with you
yeah.
100%. It's just not, it's not fair. And, you know, but we have to remember this. Sometimes we have people, saying these things that are cat people. Maybe they don't even have a dog, you know? I mean, and that all makes a difference, and that's why it's important to, of course we're all about ourselves and our programs and, that way, but still for our breeds, it is important to, we got to band together at some point and, believe what we say and know what we're believing in and work towards that,
You know,
you
a lot of
know?
people that are involved in this are people who have a political agenda that goes far beyond dogs.
Mhm.
So to
Mhm.
recognize that is
Yeah.
important, and that's how you kind of meet some of their arguments
Mhm.
towards people who have and breed short-faced dogs. And I
Mhm.
think that, you know, the quicker that we realize that there's just a much larger agenda of wanting them to stop dog ownership,
Mhm.
not just dog
Yes.
breeding. They want to stop dog ownership. They're
Right. Right.
radicals that are might as well be
Mhm.
Martians on this planet. So they're
Mhm.
just out of this worldly,
Yes.
uh, unintelligent fools that seem to have money and voice behind them.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of, they do have a lot of power and money behind them, and I think a lot of it is a misunderstanding and, you know, to get out there and to put your own personal emotions and things aside and just, listen with open ears, but I'm afraid it's not going to happen like that, of course, but
Mm.
to stereotype dog breeders now or breeds or anything is just, it's ridiculous to me, as a dog owners, there's a lot of things that dog owners do to perpetuate the problems that we have, you know? And so, yeah, when something becomes so popular, I think these problems, this is what we face.
Yeah.
And so dogs aren't, dogs are the number one pet and projected to be for years to come yet. And so, if you're a dog behavioralist right now, I mean, the job security is high. You will be in
Yeah.
business. You will have a job for a long time, you know,
Yeah, that's in a
because there's lots of things going on that, you know, people do and don't even realize.
yeah, kind of expand on that. Like, do you think that's really important for somebody who's wanting to start their own little program is being able to handle their dogs and train them correctly? Do you think that helps for future
Yes,
dogs,
I
like
do.
better men of the breed and your program?
I do. I think that affects um dogs in a program more than people realize. Um, every time a dog's wagging its tail, it doesn't mean it's happy. It can mean a lot of things, but if we just always think it's happy, then that could lead us right into a situation. Um, Dogs aren't people as much as we want to make them people. They're not people. And so to understand dogs and the way they think, to have dogs long enough to realize you've been doing something wrong all these years, that takes a little bit to swallow that and understand that. But that's a lot of our problem. Um, if can I push a book on here that I think everybody in dogs should read?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything. Yeah.
I love this book. It's one of my favorite books. It's called Dog Myths, Myths, by Garrett Stevens. And it's you can buy it on Amazon, but it's a book that will open your mind a little bit to things that we do that maybe we don't even realize we're doing, to the dogs. and, how we create, the codependence and the things like that, how we, change their attitudes and their behavior and the way they look at the world through our actions. And it's a kind of a surprising book, I think, for a lot of people, because we don't realize these things that we do. Just like I said, every time the dog wags its tail doesn't mean it's happy. They have a different wag for, if it's, he's looking at a cat, and all you see is the tail wagging, and he wants to get the cat. The tail is wagging differently than when you come home from work, But if you only perceive the tail wagging, you think everything's happy. That's where we can have some problems, But every breed is different in the way, and every dog is an individual too. That's deep thinking, but it's very, very true. There are greyhounds that don't run. There are bulldogs that don't slobber. There are, all those things are real. And so, when you get a dog, if how do you decide which dog you want? Are you just flipping through the magazine and the Tibetan Mastiff looks cool because he's so big and his hair's poofy and, he's so majestic? But if you have the space and time and the dog experience for that, that's a wonderful thing. If you don't, that can be, one of the worst decisions you've made, So we have that go on a lot. And, when that happens, it's bad for the dog. It's bad for the person. A mismatch is a bad thing. Where a great match, the dog has a better chance of staying there forever, getting more training, living the life with one family for the whole duration of its life. That's why type is important. If somebody wants a bulldog, they want it to look like a bulldog. They don't want it to look like kind of like a bulldog, So all those things are important for, just more than the show ring. It's important for so many other things. But, imagine if you wanted a dog that sat on your lap or something, and you got like we said, a border collie. I mean, yeah, it can sit on your lap, but you're going to fight it most of the time to do that because it wants to go herd and chase and jump and run,
Yep.
And so, yeah, that book, Dog Myths, is a great book. Everybody should read it, no matter where you're at in your career. If you haven't read it, it's a good one.
Absolutely. Before I forget, I'm gonna read a question that I got from Martin from Ferrerza American Bulldogs from my home state of Oregon. So I got to give him a shout out. He asked, he was talking about line breeding and inbreeding and how sometimes he has gotten really good results with line breeding and other times he's gotten really bad results with it. And same with outcrossing. What's your philosophy between all of those, the line in and outcrossing? When is it appropriate to do each one of those?
Well, you have to look past the fact that it's a line breeding or an inbreeding, and you have to look at the dogs that you're going to use in this breeding. Because it not only doubles the good, it doubles the bad. It can bring out, it can match up genes that, both parents were carried, but you didn't see them on the surface. Then it can bring them out and bring them to the surface. So, I think that's why they say leave the line breeding and inbreeding to people who are, grown the line themselves and lived the line themselves, because they know exactly what they're dealing with. But any breeding, there's no guarantee on any of it. We do the best we can. If you get 8 out of 10, that's good. But, I can tell you from my experience, match the traits you like with the pedigree you like, But if the dog is not showing what you like, definitely don't inbreed it, Don't inbreed to fix a fault or something, because that's not what it's for. It's for when you really want to lock down what you have and It's also, we'll test what's back there, and it'll come out if it's, if it's back there. But it's always a gamble. I've done the same repeat breeding and had the second litter turn out not near as good as the first litter, which was a mind blower to me, because usually I would get similar results, But in any breeding, we can study, we can plan, we can do all those things, but we can't get it 100% that it's going to be right. And so we'll always have to sort litters. We'll always have to, just evaluate what comes out of it, and hopefully it's more good than bad. But like I say, 8 out of 10 is pretty good. They say there's no perfect dogs, okay, but there's some that are pretty close to perfect too. Don't forget about that little slim percentage, and hopefully, you'll get it, so what's coming out of it next. I don't know, how long has he been breeding? A long time? Or I don't offend you if you're a long time breeder, but if you know the lines and truly have raised puppies from it and grown them from birth to death, then then you have a way better idea what's in there and what's behind that, what you see most of. Because I look at the siblings of the dog you're breeding, I think it holds so much more information than just, what's behind the dog. Look at the siblings of the dogs you're breeding. That's what you get most of, is right there in that circle. So if you got the one straight dog out of the cowhawk litter, you're probably going to see cowhawks, even though your dog is straight. So when when you've worked with the lines for several years, you know those siblings, and you know what's possible, just a little bit more. And so you want to line it up so you have a lot of the good. Even if you want to fix something, okay, you can fix something. Just make sure it has a lot of the good to carry on too. Sometimes I think I just talk so much, my answers are confusing, but if they are, you have to tell me. I think I explained that so you can understand what I'm trying to get out.
No, definitely. Absolutely. Can you explain to, say, somebody who's been living under a rock who does not know what a Shorty bull is, and what created the Shorty bull?
Okay, well, the Shorty bull is the coolest little dog on the planet if you're into little dogs. No. So when we name a breed, that should be the first clue to the breed. So you can, something's clicking, like where it came from or what it is. So Shorty bull, it should look short and it should look bully. When I say bully, it should look bulldogish. That's what bully is. Heavy bones, short, stout appearance. So short, and it needs to look short, Bully's going to tell you it's bulldoggy. And then I can go into my little spiel, it's a version of a bull breed, that suited my lifestyle, which was active. And Shorty bulls can do a little bit of a lot of things. So they can weight pull, they can run and play, they can hang. They're not going to do it for long periods. They're going to do it for short periods. So think power lifter, short bursts. Everything they do is short bursts, and they have a lifespan of 10 good years before they slow down. That was one thing that I specifically bred for, was a little more longevity, because 7 years is just not enough for me. And they're very convenient because they're small. They're convenient to my lifestyle. I can fit, the cages are little cages, the poops are little, and coming from big dogs, that was important to me as I got older, but they do appeal to a lot of different lifestyles, but make sure it appeals to your lifestyle, along with what you like to look at. They don't need, they don't need to be run miles a day or anything like that. They are short-haired, they're very easy to care for, easy to have around.
And what was the original breeds that was used in them?
Oh, that was the French Bulldog, the English Bulldog, and the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Those were the three breeds I used because to be a breed, you must use three or more breeds. Just two's a crossbred. And I brought those breeds in for different things that I was hoping to keep, you know? And so the French Bulldog was used to ensure that it was, under 15 inches tall and stayed small without losing all the bully features, you know? And the English Bulldog was my base. That was the base of my Shorty Bulls were, healthy, muscular English Bulldogs with drive and ability, with limits. Their abilities, it is limited, but it's not harmful. That they can still do things that they can still get upstairs and stuff like that. And so I was just trying to switch a few things about the English Bulldog, and so those other two breeds are what helped me switch it. I mean, the bull and the terrier are so opposite. They're so opposite, and they bring totally different things. And so that was real interesting to do that because the bulldog was selected, selectively bred by us to be what it is, and the terrier just is what it is. So the terrier traits are very strong because that's like the ultimate dog, the natural form of a dog. It can survive. It was built to endure and run, and it was built to do all those things. And that type is very strong. So that's we can manipulate it into this over here, but naturally, just left to its own, that's going to be the first features to wash off, or the exaggerated bulldog features. Yeah, so those were the three breeds I used, and then excuse me, and then I that from the very beginning, the type was real important to me, what it looked like, because that affects so many different things. And being a judge for so long, I was super picky about conformation, and just bullheaded enough that I was going to make it right. I was going to make it like I liked, and I did that for a long time. And then keeping it typey, that's another thing a new breed has to go through, is going to be left in the hands of others to keep it typey. And typey doesn't mean identical. Consistency does not mean it's identical. So when people say, what's the ideal dog? Well, there should be more than one, because we all know that there's not one stud that can be bred to every bitch and improve things. There's not one, because it takes two to do this. So when people say, what's the ideal, we can show them, okay, this one's ideal, this one's ideal, this one's ideal, but they shouldn't look identical. They just shouldn't be so far apart that they look like different breeds, And I think it takes a while for people to slow down enough to realize that. It's an illustration you're looking at most of the time. But out here in the field, it's real life. And there's more than one dog that, there's more than one dog that is ideal. The first thing you need to think of is, if I saw that dog at night, if I saw its shadow, would I know what breed it is? If I saw it in the daylight, by looking at it, could I tell what breed it is? That's what you need to ask yourself. And then, if a dog's typey or not, type is what makes a bulldog recognizable to you. And that's what makes a poodle recognizable to you as a poodle. That's how you know that this is a poodle, that's a bulldog. And then when you see them together, like the Labradoodle, whatever, that's not a poodle, it's not a Labrador, it's something different. That's type.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was when you selected this staffy? What was your? Can you say the lines, or is that's something you don't want to talk about?
No, I'm not going to say the lines, Because I selected just like I do everything. Um, Sometimes I just have to keep the dog and see how it did, and if it met my specs, then I'd use it, you know. Um, but what I looked for in that was I looked for vigor, I looked for health. They have a different musculature to them, and I looked for those things without appearing large or fragile, fine boned, or you
Mhm.
know, and it wasn't that breed is the genetics is strong there and it carries on strongly. And so, you can't say it's like the two step every time you breed these dogs. You can't say, okay, one part this and two parts that, and one part this and two parts that. It's not always like that. So it's like being a good cook. You know, yeah, it may need this in the soup, but it's going to taste different depending on what brand you use. The salt. Look at salt. The salt is really strong if you use, the natural salt, the pink
Mhm.
salt, the Celtic salt. That's strong flavored salt. That's like dogs, If you use Morton's salt, well, it takes a lot more to get it too salty,
Mhm.
And so, no matter what the pedigree is, the breed, all that, you still need to pay attention to what's in front of you and what comes out of that, and then go from there every single time, you know? And so it's not just one little formula that's going to get you there.
What were some of the roadblocks that surprised you in your beginnings of creating this composite breed of made up of 3 different distinct breeds?
Well, I thought I was going to make it a lot bullier, a lot faster than I did. Um, I knew those genetics were strong, didn't realize how strong they were until I, had a few breedings of it and raised the puppies. I learned just so many things about the traits that we see and you know, how the law of halves doesn't really work in dogs. Like, you're not going to breed a 90-pound dog and a 40-pound dog, and you're going to get 90 and 40 and some in the middle, you know. And you know, you have to line that up. One breeding isn't going to hold you very long on certain things, but one breeding when you add the Staffordshire Bull Terrier in there is going to take you a long ways, because it's the total opposite look that we want. I wanted other things than the look,
Mhm.
Does that make
Yes,
sense?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's also important if you're going to do this on this scale, so out of 64 dogs in the pedigree, when 56 of those dogs are my first picks and I've grown them from birth to death, I kind of know a little bit about the line. When I keep up with the siblings, I know a lot about the line, and I know a lot about what I'm going to get, what I'm going to put in, what I'm going to get. And those are the things that are unique. That's unique about my program. Not too many people do that anymore. That's a lot of years in dogs to have your name all over the pedigree. It also keeps you very, very, very accountable.
Mhm.
Those are your decisions. But that's like unheard of. But that's where I'm at today from doing that. And a lot of things I can read in a book, but it still isn't 100% going to be that way. Sometimes we defy science. Sometimes we're miracles. They say it'll never happen, and you'll be the one it'll happen to. Or they say, it's going to be this easy and you can't make it work for anything. That's real dogs. So, it's not. I learned that through personal experience. It's not concrete. Everything is not concrete. Amazing stuff can happen, but some things you have to really work for them. And that's how you learn if it's worth trying to breed around this fault, or just let it go and start somewhere different with a different different animal, different dog. But yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about just everything in dogs, how to raise dogs, what not to do. The raising of a dog from a puppy to an adult, a lot of people kind of want to skip that part, but that's where you learn all that's where you learn the blood, to know the blood is to grow the blood. That's where you learn that. And that's very important if you want to, have a program and you have your mind made up about what you want to end up with and what you want to produce.
Was there ever a time where you just said, "What have I got myself into?" And
Oh man, I say that like every week. Are you kidding me? No, really. No, there's a lot of times I've said that, and there's times you want to just throw in the towel. And breaks never hurt anybody. If you feel you have to take a break, man, take a break. You're not going to miss that much. Nobody can take away what you know. Sometimes starting over is the best thing you can do. Don't hang on to, if you're not happy with it, don't make more of it. Try maybe one time, but if you're not happy with it, don't make more of it, because that's not going to make you any happier, you know. But I mean, all in all, you got to have fun to be doing it this long. It's been fun. I can't say it's all been blood, sweat, and tears and hard work and all that. No, I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of great opportunities, but I mean, like I said in the beginning, I am so still intrigued with dogs. Intrigued it's the perfect word for it, I'm intrigued. It just fascinates me.
How hard is it for you, to somebody who has the experience and the knowledge, to rely on other people to help your program? Has that been a difficult process? And is it?
Yeah,
And
it's very difficult.
yeah, and how are you able to give up some of that control, and what do you look for into somebody that's going to be worthy enough to be able to help you carry on this
Well,
program?
I do have some people that are great and they're wonderful help, but if you want someone to do all the hard work and you're going to miss out on that, that's when it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But I want to be involved in everything from the minute the puppies are born. There's certain things I look for and things I want to see, and I know how I do things, and I want to do it my way because I know it works. So I mean, partners on some things are okay, and partners on other things just don't work, like you think they will. And I just think with a program, I don't want to have to rely on somebody. If I need a stud service or something like that, I don't want to have to rely on others every time I need that. So, I have the tools that I need here, and I can always make it work, different ways. And I think that's very important. I think programs are important to dog breeds. If you think back to when, when certain people quit, what happened to the dog breed, because there's certain people with programs that, they just push a breed in the direction it goes. And when they quit, it goes a different direction or it stops. And, I think it's just, in my opinion, and maybe I'm just dated old school, programs are where it's at. Everybody with two dogs trying to do everything, it doesn't work like that, because you don't have the learning experience. You don't get the learning experience. It doesn't come the same way as it does with a program with a serious breeder behind it.
No, I agree.
I'm not saying, pet people can't be, there's a lot of pet people eventually will want to breed. Okay, there's a lot to that, but sometimes they do want to breed. They do, make the conversion over to it, and they do fine. They need mentors, and they need someone who can be patient, and then they have to do their part, which is, they have to listen. If you want to learn all that stuff the hard way, that's a lot of time. And does anybody have that kind of time? That's the whole thing with the kennel. People don't have the time. They don't have the space. They don't want the responsibility. And, we're seeing kennels, phase out all the time. But it's definitely going to have an effect on our breeds.
Yeah, with this economy, it's just exacerbated
Hmm.
that, and yeah, I think that that's a hard question and to approach to the dog community. Like, I know a lot of people like the idea of having their own kennel, but are they
Hmm.
willing to?
But it is.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a real commitment. Yeah, it's a real
Yeah.
commitment. Yeah, it's a huge responsibility.
Mhm. How has the Shorty Bull changed from the first 15 years of your, creating this
Well, it
and
has.
to where it's at to now, and how has the standard in the dogs today been refined from the beginnings?
Mhm. Well, like I said in the beginning, the standard was something that um I had in my head before, it really. I knew what I wanted. And I'd written standards before then, so that was something I knew. If you go back and listen to any of my beginning stuff, read any of it, you'll see me use the word classic bulldog features a lot. I talked about the base being an English bulldog. There were so many things about the English bulldog that I just wanted to just tweak a little bit. So, but I wanted the skeletal frame. I wanted it right first, and then I just wanted to add mass to that. And there's a certain way that I like to build a dog, and I like to build it from the rear forward, from the ground up. And I'm going to put my finishing touches on its face or something like that. And so, has it changed? Oh, yes, it's changed. It was meant to change. For years, I called it a work in progress. But, we don't have another word for a breed in the beginning stages besides a work in progress. What are we going to call it,
Mhm.
And so, it's not really a breed, is talking about a population of dogs with consistent type, and, they act this way and blah, blah, blah. But it's a population. So, you have to get a population, going. But my thing was, I wanted it rock solid type, and I wanted the frame and stuff to stay solid while I added the mass on, and then I wanted to solidify that, and then, when that was solidified, then we're closer to being a breed. So yeah, it has changed somewhat. Like my dog Rampage, he was what made so many very nice dogs for me. And he was like the frame was right, the size, the attitude, so much right about him. But, just to make this really simple, do I want to make a lot of Rampages today? No, I don't. He got me here. He did his job. And I'm very grateful for that. But I'm not trying to make him look like Rampage, his look exactly. I don't know how to explain that, better than that, but it takes a long time to make a breed. It takes a long time to make a population, you know? So even though I had a lot of dogs to work with and I haven't changed my mind on the stuff that I wanted from the beginning, it still takes a lot of time, to get there. But I feel we're there. I feel like I have probably the best quality of dogs that I've had ever that meet my criteria, you know, of the type that I tried to
Mhm.
instill. I knew it would take long, but when you look at them today and the name Shorty Bull, you can definitely see what that is. There's the clue, Shorty Bull. And then you look at one of my dogs, you're not going to think anything else besides short and bully,
Mhm.
you know? And I think that we can't just go all the way exaggerated. There's no need to do that. You know, I feel like when some breeds are coming up, they gotta, break both barriers on both ends and then come together to see, where the boundaries are. I know where the boundaries are, you
Mhm.
know, and so it just took a long time to get there. But, art takes a long time. It takes a long time to, build a solid structure. And so has it changed? It has changed, and it was meant to change, but it hasn't really changed as much as you might think from the beginning to now on my personal yard.
Mhm.
I think it would might be surprising, the things that have stayed the same, but I don't want to go back to the beginning. I think these are much better dogs than in the beginning. But you have to start somewhere.
What do you think's better about them than the beginning?
I think what's better is I have the look that I like. It's, the classic bulldog features. I've got that. But I still have more health and more function. So I think that's better. In the beginning, a frame, a frame is a good solid frame. You have to have that,
Mhm.
okay? But to have type, you need the mass that goes with it. I mean, it's great that all its feet point forward and its top line's there, but without the mass, that's missing a piece of the type, you know? So that's where I think they're better.
Mhm.
They're fine tuned a little bit more, that. And when people say fine tuned, when I say fine tuned, it's like if you're working with wood and, you cut your piece out and you put it together, it looks pretty good, but you still have to sand it. And then after you sand it, that really brings it more into perspective how pretty it is. So that's fine tuning. And then maybe you stain it, and then depending on what finish you put on it. So all those little fine tuning things, they might be small things, but in the end, all those small things together, that's the difference between good and great.
Mhm.
You know, that's the difference right there. And so, you know, every dog, like I say, is individual. So you have to do, different things for different dogs. But when you have a program, um, it's just like any other kind of art. You need a little dab of this and a little dab of that, and you know. But I really like where they are. I mean, I've never been happier with them ever as I am
That's
now.
awesome.
Yeah,
Ke-
it took a long time.
Oh yeah, I can't even fathom really, but I'm sure it did take a long time.
It did.
What registries, if nobody knows, I mean, I'm talking to the newbies,
Okay.
but what registries do you associate the Shorty Bull with?
Well, with the registries, back when I did this, there was not so many registries, and it was kind of unheard of. They wouldn't really listen to you if you wanted to, register your project or whatever you wanted to call it, your mutt.
Yeah.
So I I started the registry for the Shorty Bulls, which is the BBC, the Bull Breed
Mhm.
Coalition. That's the mother registry, and that's the where we document the lineage and things like that. So in time, other registries came up, and so to keep a breed on the track, we ask that the other registries that want to dual register. Let's say you want to go to a show and they say, okay, well, you have to be registered with this club. Okay, that's cool. You have to have proof that you are indeed a Shorty Bull, before you can do that. So the BBC proves the authenticity of your dog with those BBC papers. It's the pedigree and the dog's permanent name, and you can take a copy of those. And then there are other registries that accept that as proof of authenticity, and you can get your dogs registered with a multitude of different registries: the BRC Global Registry, the ABKC, the ABR. I mean, they're just all
Mhm.
of them basically. You can do that if you have the BBC papers.
Do you ever foresee in your lifetime any kind of recognition from the AKC?
Well, that's an interesting thing, and it's a good question. I was in talks with AKC a couple years ago for quite a while, and but we were in talks for a summer, and it was very interesting. And I'd gone to Westminster, and I'm familiar with a lot of the AKC things they do and way they think and stuff. And I didn't feel at the time that that was going to benefit our breed at all. The reason I say that is it's too easy to, even though you have a cesarean here and there, they're easy to breed and raise. And so I didn't want it to become commonplace. It's not going to bring us, more money or a better dog or anything like that. It's just there's going to be more people want to breed something new that, you know, I don't know if their heart's really in it. Maybe they're just tired of what they're doing. And, a little bit of that's fine. But the AKC, I know the grass looks greener to everybody, usually, about the AKC. But I would suggest going to Westminster, go do some of those things where you think the grass is greener and, ask the questions and find out, their answers. I think it'll be different than different than what you think. We see the dog shows a couple times a year on TV. It looks glamorous and it looks rich, and that's not really how it is all the time there. But I got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut
it's
it
okay.
short, but
yeah,
they must need me over here.
I appreciate your time, and I'll connect with you at a later date. And please come on for round 2 if you can.
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks to all those who listened. And at the end of the day, remember, this is just my opinion from my experience, and we know in dogs there's a lot of ways to do things. So, my way's not the only way at all.
No.
But I appreciate you so much, and I'll be in touch with you soon.
Thanks.
You,
Jimmy. Bye.
Bye-bye.